Welcome in, everybody. Jason Priester, Clemson Insider. Welcome to Monday Live, presented by A-Glass. 2 locations right there in the PD, 1 in Florence, 1 in Sumter. They'll take care of all your auto glass needs. They do replacement, they do repair. Get yourself a free quote today, myaglass.com. What's that song from the 90s? It kind of went back to life, back to reality. I can't remember the name of it. I can hear it in my head. But, man, did Clemson get slapped back down to reality on Saturday. Slapped right back down. I thought Clemson would lose the game. I picked them to lose the game. I based that mostly on I just didn't think Chris Vizzina would be good enough. But that's not why Clemson lost the game. He did enough to win. It took him a little while to get going, but once he got going, he was pretty good. Didn't get a lot of help from the play calling in the first quarter, early parts of the second quarter. But once he started to get going, he got pretty dialed in, man. It was the defense that just absolutely crapped the bed on Saturday. Every single time Clemson scored, the defense let LSU score, or SMU score, excuse me. That's not what, Dabo Sweeney likes to call complimentary football. Just too many busts on the back end. Your linebackers getting sealed off instead of shedding blocks. Not enough pressure on Kevin Jennings, even though I thought they did a pretty good job of attacking the perimeter. But, man, this defense has got some problems, particularly on the back end, particularly as safety. You'll see some of those younger guys, they'll make a good play, then they'll have a bust or they'll have an MA or they'll miss something here, miss something there. It's just too up and down. Maybe, in hindsight, you probably could have benefited from a veteran safety, bringing one in out of the portal. But hindsight's 20/20. You got what you got at this point. On the 70-yard touchdown, you had a bust. On one of those late touchdowns, you had a bust on the other side. Dabo, I thought it was Corey and Gibson that had messed up, but Dabo said tonight it was actually Terrell. It just seems like you can't get 11 guys pulling all in the same direction. And then you got an offensive coordinator that absolutely refuses to run the football. Just absolutely refuses to run it. I think the running backs had 11 carries in that game Saturday. That's criminal. I get it. The offensive line did not play well at all, but, man, you got to make more of an effort than that. And it's becoming a trend. It's a week after week after week after week after week thing. If you look at the rushing numbers, it'll tell you Clemson ran the ball 30 times. But, man, 15 of those came from Vizzina, and he gained 4 yards on them. Adam Randall had 10 carries. Gideon Davidson had 1. They even ran Chris Denson out there for 1 play to let him run. Everybody in the stadium knows you're going to run it. A lot of problems on this football team, man, and I get it. Everybody thinks this coach needs to be fired, that coach needs to be fired. I think Clemson's got issues that run much deeper than who's on the coaching staff. I think they have deep-seated issues on a foundational level. Just look at all the coaching hires that have been made over the past 3-4 years, and well-received coaching hires that include 2 new coordinators, and you're still getting the same result. That tells me, man, that this thing is broken somewhere, and there's a disconnect somewhere. And it goes. You can go out and clean house on the coaching staff, but if you don't change some foundational things, I don't know that anything changes. You got one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. You got one of the best corner coaches in the country. You got one of the more well-respected D coordinators in the country. You got an offensive coordinator that was seen as this, up-and-coming hot shot who has not lived up to the billing, but that's what he was viewed as coming in. You got a defensive ends coach that is, has a heck of a reputation outside of what he's done at Clemson. Same thing for the defensive tackles coach. I mean, it's not like this coaching staff's not littered with bad football coaches. Now, that doesn't mean that they all work together and they all gel together and they all form this cohesive unit. But there's just been too many coaching changes the past few years, and you keep seeing the same thing. That's what makes me think there's something else going on here, and nothing that can be fixed mid-season is something that's going to have to be done over the off season. What those changes are, I don't know. It shouldn't make for an interesting off season though. We'll see what Dabo Swinney decides to do. I think a lot of it involves taking a long, hard look in the mirror and kind of going over the entire program, how you do everything, and see what's working, see what's not, and making the necessary changes. But one thing I do know, what they're doing now, it ain't working. It's just not working. There's something bad wrong over there. It doesn't look like guys have checked out. I thought for the most part everybody played hard. It's one of those mind-numbing things, man. It's hard to wrap your head around. Saw somebody say earlier, can we talk basketball, baseball? We can talk about anything you want. I went to the basketball exhibition Friday night. I went back to some baseball this weekend. I'm not done any softball, but Brandon's going to jump back on with us about 7:30 or so. And we'll get some of his thoughts on what we saw this weekend. I know he had some opinions. I saw him post on Facebook over the weekend, so we'll dive into some of that. But until then, we'll do what we always do. Yeah, here it is. Basketball, baseball, softball. I'll say this, man. I've been pretty encouraged by what I've seen from the young pitchers over there. Very encouraging. They're not going to lack for power arms. We'll see if they're all ready. But from what I've seen in the scrimmages, man, they throw strikes and a lot of them throw hard. The kid to transfer from Alabama, I didn't see all of the scrimmage Friday, but I was told he hit 97 on the gun. I've seen at least two freshmen hitting 95. Redshirt freshman hit 95 yesterday. Several more throwing in the 93, 94 range. Freshman Dan Margulies got up to 95 one time yesterday. So these they got some dudes that can throw hard. Seen Drew Titsworth pitch twice. He needed it. I think 11 pitches to get out of one inning and 9 pitches to get out of the other. A strikeout in each of them. He's been pretty good. Nate Savoy's been really good. He's going to put some pop back in that lineup. I like what I've seen from Luke Gaffney so far. He looks a little bigger and a little stronger. He's had some really good at-bats when I've been there. Same for Josh Castellani, Jaron Purify, Bryce Clavon, Jack Crichton. Those two guys are battling for center field, and they've both been really good defensively out there. I mean, I've been encouraged by what I've seen, but it's fall ball, and it's still a small sample size. I believe Dabo's friends, family, and ex-players as unproven coaches have finally caught up with his thoughts. Yeah, I don't buy into that too much. There's too many proven coaches on this football staff, man. I just don't buy into that. Even Tyler Grisham's turned out to be a pretty good wide receivers coach. And you've got Lonnie Galloway there with him. Maybe I have serious questions about running back, at least from a rotational standpoint. I just don't understand how, this second year in a row, and it burned them last year. And I just don't understand how you get, to this point in the season and you've not made much of an effort to get Gideon Davidson involved, to get EZ involved. If Adam Randall goes down, man, all of a sudden you're really in a bad spot. Same thing happened last year when Phil Maffa went down. They had to keep running him out there, basically playing with one arm because they didn't trust anybody else because they didn't try to get anybody else ready. And they're making that same mistake this year. They're going to end, they're playing with fire here, especially in this portal era. You're liable to run one of those guys or both of them off. They might not care that the job's open next year. That's the one that I would question. But the rest of them, no, because most of that gripes about people on the support staff and people way down the support staff, in the pecking order, they just don't have that kind of effect. Mike Reed's one of the best. He's been viewed as one of the best corner coaches in the country. I think Mickey Kahn, for the most part, has done a pretty good job with the safeties. They've been inconsistent this year, but it might be because they got too much youth on the field. You're playing with a sophomore and a guy that just moved over there before a year or so ago. Matt Luke's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. And I think I said it a few minutes ago, Eason and Rump, they were all both well established before they got to Clemson. I mean, it's not like there's a bunch of, inexperienced, unestablished coaches littering the staff, when you look at the on-field assistants. I guess you could point to Boulware, but he's got Tom Allen there in the room with him. I think it goes deeper than the coaches. Maybe you can make the argument that a guy like Mike Reed's been around in one spot too long. But he's certainly not a bad football coach, man. He's produced too many first-round draft picks. I've seen so many people trashing Matt Luke. None of these guys that are starting and playing right now, they're not his guys. I don't know that they're athletic enough, or at least most of them are athletic enough to really do some of the things Garrett Riley wants to do on offense. If you look at some of the guys Luke's brought in, they're bigger, but they're more athletic too. But no, I think the issues just go deeper than that. I think they're foundational. I mean, it doesn't mean you couldn't, make a tweak here and there to the staff to improve it. Don't get me wrong. I think the issues are deeper seated than that. Not even sure we make a bowl game. I'm not sure they do either. I thought they had kind of found a little something over the past 2 weeks, but obviously not. Not having your quarterback hurts, make no mistake. But, man, that was not the reason they lost Saturday. I wouldn't be outright shocked to see them lose every game from here on out except Furman, with the way they played Saturday. That's just kind of where we are. I don't think they will, but it wouldn't shock me. South Carolina's pretty bad. Duke's nothing to write home about. Florida State just lost to Stanford Saturday night around, I think it was about 2 a.m. when that game ended. So, it's not like the schedule's littered with heavyweights the rest of the way, but Clemson's not been outside of North Carolina and Boston College. They didn't they got blown out by Syracuse, who lost their quarterback in that game, and what they've done since, probably isn't really representative of what they really were. But I don't think they were this, juggernaut football team. I think they were mediocre before Ancelli went down. Clemson made them look like world beaters. I think SMU's not nearly as good as they were last year, and Clemson makes them look like world beaters with a quarterback playing on a gimpy ankle. So, I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't go to a bowl game this year. They probably really need to get the extra practices and work a lot, get some of those younger guys some work and let them go out and play in that thing. But I do not know that they will. I hate this new Swiss cheese defensive game. What scheme is that? It's been pretty successful wherever he's been before he got to Clemson. I don't think it's the scheme. I see so much griping about not being aggressive and not blitzing all the time. It's hard to blitz when you can't trust the back end to do the most basic of things, because you're going to get burned if you do it. I don't think it's scheme that's the problem. Clemson will have a record number of ACC Network games this year, the least subscribed channel of all the others. First year rev share would be awful. Another downside. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I better not say that because I don't want to say something wrong. But yeah, fans used to gripe all the time about the noon games, yada, yada, yada. But when you're in a noon slot on ABC, that's where you want to be. That's one of the most watched games of the week. And now that they're in this new era where the revenue is going to be unevenly distributed, and ratings are going to factor into that heavily. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck on the ACC network because it's going to hurt your numbers big time. Allen needs to bring in his own coaches. Well, I've been asking for 3 weeks now to give me an example of a head coach allowing his new coordinator to bring in his own staff, and nobody's provided me the first one yet. Need a portal QB to push Vizzina and keep Riley away from him going forward. I lean towards thinking Clemson needs to go get a quarterback out of the portal. 100%, absolutely. Didn't think Tate Reynolds was a plug-and-play guy before the season started. He's been hurt, only played in one game, injured a hamstring, and he's not played since. He told me he was going to be back. He was expecting to be back soon, but that's going to, hamper his development some. Brock Bradley's certainly not a plug-and-play guy. And as good as Vizzina was Saturday, at least over the last 3 quarters, it's still one game. I absolutely think they need to bring somebody in to compete with him for the spot next year. To start with the positive, Vizzina was really able to spread the field. It felt like he was able to get more guys involved. Love seeing more, have a few huge games. Yeah, the offensive line was pretty abysmal. Absolutely. That's another area I think you're going to have to go and address in the portal next year because, they've got some young talent, but, man, sometimes it takes them offensive linemen 2-3 years to get really ready. I don't know if you want to run you want to run a bunch of freshmen and redshirt freshmen out there. Obviously, Braden Jacobs will be starting next year. They really liked where Easton Ware was. I know they really like golly, I can see his face and his name's escaping me. The offensive lineman they added late, the one that was committed to UCF for a while, they think he could be the center of the future. There's some other ones too that they really like, but you're going to need a guy or two to help bridge the gap to get to those guys. So I think you probably need at least one, maybe two. But yeah, I was really pleased with what Vizzina did, especially he started off bad, and he didn't get any help from Garrett Riley. Make no mistake, the play calling did not help him out at all, and Dabo was actually kind of critical with the play calling tonight, particularly when it came to the running game. We got Dabo on his weekly teleconference a little while before I jumped on here. He does them on Mondays during bye weeks. But yeah, he over those last three quarters, man, he was really seeing it, and he's really good attacking the field vertically. And Riley's always wanting to do the short stuff, the quick passing game, the little quick outs and those kind of things. I don't know that that's Vizzina's strong suit. He's probably a guy you need to unleash and let him attack down the field. But still, it's one game. But yeah, I was really pleased with the way he played, particularly when you factor in how bad the offensive line was, and he got no help from the running game. No, I don't have a problem with him calling the QB runs because I think Vizzina's a better runner than what he showed on Saturday. But probably I would like to see the backs get a little bit more of those as opposed to the quarterback, especially when it's not working. Why do you care that college kids are out on the town lighting it up or partying or whatever? That's been going on since the beginning of time. And I see all this stuff about how I saw several posts on Twitter about how they were out the night before the game. That ain't true. They're all together at a hotel the night before the game. They're not out on the town partying, but if they want to go blow off some steam after a game, who cares? That's far from one of the bigger problems this team's got right now. Why do we run a defensive lineman, but we won't run our running backs? I wish I had the answer to that for you. And why do you call to me, it looked like they had a counter, with Peter Woods. If you're going to hand it to him, it needs to be north-south. That thing was doomed to fail from the get-go. The lineman was slow to get over the pool. I mean, if you're going to run him, man, it hat on a hat, north-south. Yeah, I do think Vizzina's a little bit better runner than what we saw Saturday. He's obviously not a burner or anything. He's probably a little bit quicker than most people would think, but I don't know that he's a guy you won't run it 15 times a game. I, maybe 7, 8. There's probably a sweet spot somewhere in there, but and most of those things, if not all of them, were design runs. It weren't like they were all zone reads and he was reading. But I don't want to say all of them were, but most of them were designs. You know what, man? I get it. You got a problem with players getting paid. No other school, most other schools aren't having a problem. This is not a money thing, as bad as people want to paint it to be. It's not a money thing. There are players who are not living up to the salaries they are getting. Make no mistake. But there are also some players on this team with first round draft grades. I guarantee you do not want to lose those first round draft grades. When you're a reason why schools, the NCAA, coaches, assistant coaches are all making millions and millions of dollars, you deserve a piece of that pie. There's just no other way to say it. Changed coaches, fired coaches, got hot names in here. Clemson's got a blue chip ratio that's like in the top 20 in the country. The 2016 team that won the national title had a 53% blue chip ratio. This team's got a higher blue chip ratio than that. So I don't think it's really – there's some talent on this team. Have there been a ton of, have there been some recruiting misses? Sure. I don't think there's been a ton of them. I think it's, and I don't even, people want to say the coaches can't develop. I think it goes deeper, man. It's foundational. It's in the process. And that kind of starts with the head man. The coordinators have to use Dabo's friends and family. Explain why that's okay. I already talked about this, man. Who's the friends and family on Tom Allen's staff? I guess you could throw Mickey Kahn in there. Who else? On the other side of the ball, Tyler Grisham, I guess, C.J. Spiller. Grisham's turned into a pretty good wide receiver coach. All of you can disagree with me. I don't care. That's what I believe. He's also got Lonnie Galloway in there that's doing a lot of the work with the wide receivers too, who is a well-established coach. I just don't think you got a staff that's littered with bad football coaches. And again, tell me a head coach that allows his new coordinators to hire his own staff. I've been asking for that example for 3 weeks now. Nobody's given me one because it just doesn't happen. You might find instances where they're allowed to bring one guy with them, maybe two, but they're not allowed to hire the whole staff. That's the head coach's job. Because when it goes wrong, it's going to be the head coach's head that's on the chopping block, not the coordinators. Why should college football be any different? Why should it be any different than anything else that's bringing in the kind of money that college football brings in? And I don't have any problem with throwing some incentives in there, but you can't make it all incentive laden. That's just not the way the world works. you got to have a base in there somewhere. Otherwise, nobody's coming to play for you, period. Do you think the issues will take a couple of seasons to recover back to a top 15? Seems like the roster next year was already going to have many guys. Again, I think that's a good question. I don't, seeing as I can't sit here and list every specific, thing I think's wrong. I just believe there's something wrong foundational. Maybe in the way they go about doing things day to day. You can, maybe the way they practice. There's a lot that goes into it. So I don't know if that's stuff that can all be fixed in one off season. As far as the gaps, for next year, I think all of us could agree that we knew next year was going to be like that regardless of what happened this year. With the way this year's played out, there might be a few more gaps because there might be a few more guys hitting the exit door than maybe would have otherwise. But a lot of what happens next year is going to depend on, what they're able to do in the portal, what they want to do in the portal. But yeah, I do believe that, that the head man's going to have to take a hard, long look in the mirror and decide what is working, realize what's not working, and he's got to be willing to change those things. I see my man Brandon's getting ready. There he is. I thought when you took the picture off there that you wanted me to win. My bad.
No.
Welcome in my man Brandon Ford, former Clemson tight end.
I was just chilling in the back. That's all.
So I seen you. I saw your Facebook post Saturday. You made one or two. Tell us what you saw Saturday. Some of your thoughts from the game.
Well, early on, I just thought we were, kind of get Vizzina a feel for the game and kind of give him like little baby steps. And then when he made, obviously the one touchdown to TJ Moore, I was like, man, this kid can spin it. He not just can only throw the quick screens and stuff, but he can actually spin it. So I was like, the only way we win this game or we, progress is he's going to have to, throw the ball, obviously, because we were getting beat up front. And I thought in the first half, defensively, outside of the touchdown they scored, we did pretty well holding them to field goals, especially when we got stopped on the 4th and 1, gave them a short field. I thought defense held up pretty well. And I was just saying in my head, like, man, if we can give Vizzina a chance, I think SMU might have been like 118 or something past defense. And I was like, the way TJ was, those guys were separating, I was like, man, we ought to throw on them all day, which was the story in the second half. Vizzina looked better than what most thought he would do. But it just seemed like the defense, they adjusted to us. They realized they couldn't run up the middle, and they started going outside. And they just stretched out defense, man. They pinned the edge, and they made those linebackers chase, and they had some speed guys that could get out. And, I think the first two series that SMU had, they had like two big plays each drive that ate up like 60 or 70 yards. And then it was a touchdown, and then another one. And I was just like, man, like, if we could just get one stop, I think we'll be all right.
That's what they needed was one stop. They just couldn't get it. And it was kind of like last year. A lot of teams, would stretch them, dash them outside. And that's kind of what we saw some of that Saturday. So how big of an impression did Vizzina make?
So for me, I thought it was really well because you heard about how he was doing in practice. You heard about all the practice throws, the days, how well he was performing. But, you always still want to see live reps. Live reps is what counts. I mean, as a player, as a former player, practice does help, and it gets you game ready. But those reps in the game still count because at practice you don't have 80,000 fans, or if you're on the road or whatever. So, momentum, you talk about adrenaline, all the things that factor. And I thought he was poised. I mean, even when Wesco and Tyler Brown both dropped those passes, you didn't see the kid cringe or anything. He was just like, all right, next play, look over to the sideline, next play. Even on the 4th and 20, 22, he was like, I'm going to throw this ball up there and see what my guy's got because I know what my guy can do. And, I mean, he just looked, and I'm not going to try to reach far, but you kind of saw the type of look in his face of not being bothered like you saw in, Trevor and Deshaun's when they were young. Like, they would make throws, and you just didn't see them flinch. It was almost like, okay, I'm going to get that one back, or I'm going to make another throw, or I'm going to make another throw. And that was very surprising because I think you and I and everybody else thought coming this game, man, they're going to try to run it as much as we can and throw it when we need to and try to squeeze a W.
I actually picked Clemson to lose because I had that little faith in Vizzina, but man, he was really good the final 3 quarters. And you mentioned that the drop from Wesco, he actually had 4 drops, not Wesco but combined.
Right.
He gets that drop from Wesco, man, and he comes right back and fires another bullet right down there. I mean, he just came right back. He didn't let it affect him. I was overly pleased with what we saw from him. It's still one game.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon mentioned the SMU pass defense ranked number 133 in the country coming into Saturday. Only Air Force had a worse pass defense than SMU. They were next to last. So, you still want to see a little more. And I still, when you look what's coming next year after Cade's gone, all you have is the 2 true freshmen, Pierman, Vizzina, and Denson. I would probably prefer them going and getting somebody established that can compete. Not necessarily handing the starting job, but somebody to come in here and compete with Vizzina and just see who wins out.
Yeah, I actually in PT today was talking about that. Maybe I was going in the portal getting a guy that can compete because you almost don't want to give a kid an edge that, okay, I got the job, like I'm comfortable. You want to make him think like I still got to go out there and compete every day. I got to sharpen my tools. Because right now, if you look at it, he's the front runner out of what we have and what's coming. So you just don't want to give him the spotlight and say,
Right.
hey, you know what I'm saying? So like get a guy that's either going to push him or beat him out to give us the best edge to win.
Yeah, we got an update on Wesco today a little while ago. It was all good news, nothing broken, but he's going to be out for the rest of the year. He went home today, if I'm remembering that right. So he was in the hospital a couple nights. Dabo said they were hoping he'd be back at the facility tomorrow, but that'd be up to him and how he was feeling. But he's going to miss the rest of the year.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if he had something not the same, but you remember when Mike Williams?
He actually mentioned both Mike and Justin Ross and said it wasn't like that.
Okay.
He wouldn't really get all that specific. John Blau from the Post and Courier even asked him, was it a neck, back, and about all Dabo would say it was more of a back thing. So that's about as specific as it got, but nothing broken, which is the good news.
That's good.
how can we not have any running backs? Clemson doesn't have running backs. Golly, man, they just signed one of the top backs in the country last year. Jay Haynes was a 4-star. EZ was a pretty highly rated 4-star. So there's 3 4-stars right there. There's running backs on the team, man. They just start really using those 2 guys for whatever reason.
Yeah, I kind of want to try to get some info on that, but I mean, I know it's probably not going to get much, but I think they want to push Randall as much as they can, give him the carries because he has made plays throughout the first 7 games, but I think they're kind of holding back Davison too much. Like I feel like I don't necessarily, when I watch the game, I try to watch the O-line and tight ends first because obviously the position I play. Then I look at the other skill. But it's almost like it's either he's either messing up on a pass pro or a run block or something, and it's like he gets snatched out the game. And you're never going to get in a rhythm just running one play. I mean, I don't care if do you remember when we played Georgia back in 2013? No, it wasn't 13, 14. Deshaun gets in and throws a laser to Sharon Peak for a touchdown, and then they bring Cole back in the game. You can't get in the rhythm. Like you gotta keep trucking. Like and I don't know who's pulling more so the strings of how many reps, who gets what, but I mean, even CJ when he was a freshman, he was playing. So I mean, you gotta play that guy, man. I feel like the kid's special. I mean, I could be wrong. It could be a playbook thing. It could be performance. Obviously they know more than me and anybody. But I'd like to see him play a little bit more.
Me and you both. I'd like to see them hand the ball to the backs more, period. They got 11 carries the other day. 11 carries.
Yeah, and JP, one thing I will say is I know CJ's putting the best we got out there, but I kind of wonder if just the way up front we were getting beat, did that cause a discomfort of, trying to put those young guys in, and up front we're just getting whipped outside of Jacobs. I just didn't know if they were just, ready to go air attack because of how well Vizzina was playing. It could be a lot of things that factored in last Saturday, obviously. So we'll have to wait and see.
We need to bring in a stud safety this offseason. We are lacking speed and physicality big time, and it shows. Physicality, yeah, I agree with that. I think they got some speed, man. I just think they always in the wrong place.
Yeah,
bust or something. Ricardo Jones is pretty quick.
The one thing that I would say that I did see and was a little frustrating was when you look at the defense inside, we're good. Like if you try to run on us inside between them hashes, good luck. But it's the outside that gets us. It's almost like if we don't recognize or have a start, these guys get right outside of us and we're taking bad angles. Like you just said, we're in the wrong spot. We're eyes in the wrong spot. And, you get a speedy guy out there, man, and one step is a big difference. And 3-yard gain, 10-yard gain, or home run ball. And, I mean, they scored on I think it was an option play. The guy he got a lineman out front, and nobody was there within catching him. And I was just like, what? Like, that don't never happen. Like, we're always in place from the safety and linebacker position. And it just seemed like they went – I can tell you one thing they do, and I'm going to give credit to SMU's coach. They went in that second half, and they adjusted, and they said, look, we're going to get outside. And, I mean, man, they had to give – Jennings had to take another shot or two in that ankle because he
wasn't even hardly limping in the second half.
He went from gimpy to it was a slight it was a noticeable limp when he was trying to slow down, but when he was running, man, he was as good as it gets. And I was like, dang.
Yeah, you had a bust from Jones, if I'm remembering right in that game. You had the PI from Hannafin. You had a bust from Terrell.
Mm-hmm.
I do think you got some help on the way at safety, man. I love Polo Anderson, the kid from Dorman. I think the Gephardt kids bring some physicality. There's another one too, and I'm forgetting who it is right off the top of my head. But they got 3 safeties in the incoming class. But no, I think they probably, in hindsight, I didn't, it wouldn't have hurt my feelings if they'd have done it. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't think they really needed to go get a safety out of the portal for this season. But in hindsight, maybe they needed to go get one veteran to put with these young guys like Hannafin and Ricardo Jones and Corey and Gibson, who's having to play more since Shelton Lewis left. So maybe that would have benefited them. But, man, there's a lot of spots I think they're going to have to address
right.
before next year.
And you know what's funny is we, again, in PT today, we were talking about who were some of the guys that had not having the year we thought they would have that may come back. And everybody was looking at me. And I said, look, I'm going to be honest. I said, I think Peter Woods I think he's 50-50. I think he can come back if he wants. I don't think his draft stock has failed much because the guy's taking on double teams every play. Because if you don't double him, he wins. He's just going to obliterate the guy in front of him. I think he's fine. I think Terrell's fine. I think Parker is one that may need to come back and work on his game because he's kind of been the guy that, from what we saw last year, we haven't seen this year. And a little displeasing, but I think we do need to go out and grab some veteran guys who can, help us, like you said, a safety. And I would love to see, I think Helt has another year eligibility. I'd like to see him come back. And just, I kind of wonder.
He probably should.
Yeah. I kind of wonder how is what's the one kid Amari
Adams?
Yeah, kind of want to see him obviously next year, but definitely, man, I think TJ needs to come back and kind of do what what's the guy that Xavier Thomas did, kind of rebrand himself and kind of get it back going.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Amari Adams in the future. My tongue tied, man. Talent evaluation and the need for a GM. Well, they did just hire the big, I shouldn't say just, but it hasn't been that long ago, the big talent evaluator guy, Kevin Kelly. He's not really been in the role really long enough to really have that much of an impact yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the jury's kind of still out on the GM spot. I thought Sorrells did a heck of a job last year with all the retention and getting all those guys signed and back in the fold. But it's going to be a different beast this year. You're not going to focus so much on retention. You're going to have to add. And as you say here, there's some talent eval that goes along with that. We're going to find out about those guys here, come the first of the year.
And there are going to be some good guys. It happens every year in the portal that's going to be available. And it's going to be a matter of how aggressive we are. I think we had a good start of putting ourselves in the portal last year, kind of putting ourselves out there, but we're going to have to reel some guys in to help.
What do I mean by foundational? I just think the issues are deeper than just who's on the coaching staff. I think there might be some, when you do something the same way for so long, it gets a little redundant. You got to keep, as everybody likes to say, you got to adapt or get left behind. And when everybody's talking about Dabo and adapting, they're always talking about the portal and NIL. But maybe some of the biggest things he needs to adapt to or some of maybe not adapt to, but evolve with or some of the things that they do on a day-to-day basis, just process type things. Maybe it's some of it's part of how they practice, the way they go about practice, how they view practice. I mean, it could be a lot of things, man. If I had all the answers, I would certainly tell you. I just think that there's some process stuff that probably needs to be tweaked or addressed or just outright changed. We'll see how it goes. Luke and Allen should be the only two that are safe. I can't understand why anybody would want to fire Mike Reed, man. Count the number of first-round picks that guy's had.
Yeah, count them a lot. And the crazy thing, and not just first round, he's had some day 2 guys, day 3 guys that, I mean, you're looking at Kayvon Wallace, Bashard Breeland was a part of his because he came in right when I was leaving. And then you talk about Trayvon Mullen and you give him Isaiah Simmons. I mean, that guy's he's had a lot, and he got another one in Terrell that's about to leave. So I mean, I think Mike Reed knows what he's doing.
How much of the roster not panning out like we thought falls on Kevin Kelly? Most of the roster was in place before he got the job, so I would say very little. Listening to Dabo speak tonight sounds like a broken record. How much of that is him putting lipstick on a pig, or is he watching the same game we are? It is more about him putting lipstick on a pig. He sees what the rest of us see. I can guarantee you that. He actually was pretty critical of Garrett Riley tonight. That's something he's done 1 or 2 times before this season, but it's something he doesn't generally do. I mean, there are things he sees, man. It's like I've said before, he's just not going to come out and publicly tear it down. It's just not who he is. He's going to handle all that stuff behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's anything you can do right now to change anything midseason. I think things that need addressing are probably stuff that has to be addressed over the offseason.
Right. Yeah, because we've definitely shot ourselves in the foot on ACC and playoff, like all that's out the window. Now you're just trying to develop now, and hope you can string along wins along the way and have a positive season.
No pass rush and the inability of linebackers to play the run fundamentally sound. Backers are always out leveraging the ball. You know, I was actually surprised to see this the other day, but going into the SMU game, Clemson had the quickest high pressure rate in the country. That blew my mind. They're getting some pass rush somehow, some way. A lot of teams have been using the quick passing game against them, but yeah, the other thing though, yeah, there's some guys that aren't all that, or let's just say not playing fundamentally sound.
Right.
It seems Woodaz takes bad angles sometimes. Sammy gets out levers at times. So yeah, I would say that. And just watching it, yeah, it feels like they're not getting home when it comes to getting the pressure. But again, I was very, very surprised to see that stat the other day that Clemson had the fastest pressure rate in the country. I think that's how it was worded.
Mm-hmm.
It was talking about teams that get to the quarterback the fastest. I think it was like 2 seconds, 2.1 seconds, something like that. I forgot what it was. Yeah, see that you touching on what I was going to say earlier about the media rev shares calculated over average of several years. So 1 year is definitely not going to kill them. The reason I pulled back is because I couldn't remember how many years. I started to say 4, but I don't think that's right. It might be 5. I can't remember. That's why I didn't say it at all, because I'd rather not say it than say it wrong. Have you seen some of the 2026 commits? You know, some of the stuff they post on Twitter, Brandon?
Yeah, I saw the retweet that I think it's Max Brown, Sammy's brother, had of Polo about how everybody's like kind of down and hating on Clemson and they're still all in and things like that. I mean, a kid who sees through a university, and when I say that, I mean like when they see what's going on, the problems or the issues. Most kids that love a program that's really going there for the program and not really chasing the dollar sign, they want to help. They want to be the answer and not the guy that kind of, well, they're doing bad, let me go somewhere else. They don't want to jump on the bandwagon. They kind of want to come in and prove that, hey, just because, you know, we're not having a season we were scripted to have, starting off number 4, contenders, blase. So, yeah, I have seen a lot of their posts and stuff, and I was pleased by the majority of them and how these guys are still sticking with Dabo. And I just think that's a lot that says about him and what he's done, you know, over the years and what kind of guy he is and leader he is. Because you could be like some programs where they're just like, man, I'm out of here. Or we could be like Florida or VTech where the coach is going and now 50% of your recruits are AWOL because you know how that goes. When somebody goes that they like, it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah, you know, starting out 1-3, man, this class could have easily fallen apart. Easily.
Mm-hmm.
And during that bye week, I talked to several of these kids. Pretty much, I think I talked to every O-line commit except Carter Scruggs. I talked to Brock Bradley. I texted a little bit back and forth with Tate Reynolds over the weekend. You know, I've talked to a bunch of them, man, and they are all adamant that they're not jumping ship. That they're all locked in, fully locked in, and there's several of them that 100% believe they are going to win big when, you know, again while they're at Clemson. You know, so you know, that is a positive, absolutely, because it could have easily gone the other way. And, you know, there's still a couple months left of December. And, you know, I feel pretty confident in saying there's going to be some tweaks to the coaching staff, and you never know how those things might impact the incoming class. But so far, so good on that end. And that's kind of a testament to, you know, the messaging from some of these coaches on the staff.
Right.
If it's foundational, do you think Dabo fixed it, or is he too rooted in his ways? This has been a noticeable decline for about 5 years. Defensive speed and physicality both ways is a problem. You know, I 100% believe that nobody wants to win more than Dabo. You've been around him way more than I have. That guy, I know you know that dude wants to win.
If anybody is him, I mean, I'll say that. Yes, he wants to win more than anybody. Obviously, being the leader of the program, you want things to go right. You want the results. And we're not getting the results we're normally getting in. I mean, I get, and JP, I know you get it too. We, in that span where we were playoff, national championship, that's what everybody wants. I want us to get back to that stage. Obviously, it's not 4 teams anymore. It's 12. And there's a possibility they may expand another 4. Who knows? But I think the program, you know, if you could reset back to game 1 with all the talent coming back, with all the leadership, you would think prior to this year, we're not far off where we wanted to be as far as what we had on paper. And if I guess a decline, you can say we're not playing championship ball. You could say that we were consistently playing. But I honestly, you know, within those 5 years of us, minus last year, not making the playoffs, I mean, I thought we were still pretty good. We were just a game away from being where we might have wanted to be. And those 5 years, honestly, programs would kill to have those 5 years that we had. You know what I mean? Every year you want to get to the playoffs. That's the goal now. Nobody cares about the Belt Bowl, the Pop-Tart Bowl. Everybody wants the playoff. If you ain't in the playoffs, it's almost like, all right, what are you doing? So I get it. I totally get it. The 5-year span that Corey's talking about. But the one thing I do want to say is I do think the physicality part we're kind of lacking in the air because you see a lot of missed tackles still happening, and that was one thing that we wanted to see cleaned up from last year. The guys are, when they're in the right spot, are there. But even like on that last touchdown they scored Saturday, he was like stopped in the backfield. Then he got hit again 2 yards from the end zone. Then he just walks in, and I'm just like, well, dang. We can't, like, I think they went, what, was it 4 for 4 maybe? Or they might have been 4 for 5. They did punt. And I think that's when, what's his name, got hurt. Wesco got hurt. I think I did see them punt once or twice. But other than that, man, I think they were 4 for 4 on series of scoring a touchdown.
They punted their first 2 possessions in the second half. After that, it was touchdown, interception, touchdown.
Okay, that's what it was. Because I was about to say, it just felt like we could not put a hammer on the nail. And it was one play, man. Freaking 4th and 3, and they go for it. And I'm like,
I knew they were going to go for it, too.
Listen,
I didn't do it.
I'm sitting in my head like, if they don't get this, the momentum is on our side. We're going down to win this game.
If Clemson gets a stop, I think they win.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
We're having different discussions today. As far as do I think Dabo fixes it, or is he too rooted in his ways? I don't think he's too rooted in his ways. I think the biggest thing is, identifying what those issues are. It's easy for us to sit out here on the outside looking in and talk about those things or speculate what they might be. But it's different when you are the head guy and you've got to kind of, put the spotlight on everything you do and evaluate everything you do. I think he'll want to fix it. I think the question is, can he identify what's wrong? I don't think he'll just be too stubborn and say, no, I'm doing what I do because it's always worked, but it's not working anymore. While you went the 21 season, the 22, 23 season without going to the playoff, you still had 10 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins. For decent seasons, it wasn't like the program was falling off a cliff, even though it
right
back. Like you were just saying. But this year the wheels have kind of fallen off, man, and it's exposed, some things that probably, a lot of us can't see from the outside looking in.
Right.
Expose some issues that we know are there that have to be addressed. But to answer your question, no, I do not think that Dabo Swinney will be content with 6-win seasons, 7-win seasons, 8-win seasons. I think he'll try and fix it. Now, don't mean he will. I think the biggest thing is identifying what some of those things are.
Right. Definitely.
A good transfer QB will not come and compete. He needs to be starting. Well, you got to decide on what you want first and foremost. If you decide you want a starter, then you go out and you got to spend the money to go get one. But if you decide you want somebody to come in and compete, there are guys that will do it. We've seen some. It's just not going to be the top level guys. They're going to want to go start, obviously. But if you decide you want to bring in somebody maybe just a tier below those guys to come in and compete, it's harder to find them, make no mistake, but there are a few out there here and there.
Right. And you can't just go get a good guy. You got to get a guy that fits what you want to do. You can't just say, hey, we're going to go get you know, and I know everybody's been talking about the DJ Lagway kid, but who knows how much money that kid might want, or someone else. I just think, like you just said, JP, you've seen it before. You might not be the top tier 5 guy, but I think there's room for Vizzina to still grow. Obviously, I think he needs to be pushed, and even if a guy that comes in that's that good, he's still going to have to compete. It's not just going to be, oh, you're coming in day one, you're going to be the guy. That's not how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I'm not, when I say a tier below, I'm not talking about, a guy like Hunter Helms or Paul Tyson, who is not going to play. That's just basically coming in to get their coaching career started. I'm talking about a guy that could legit have a possibility of winning the job. It's harder to find them, make no mistake, but we've seen some examples of that. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, and I can't, but I know there have been. Look at, Aaron Nolan's a good example. He left Ohio State, went to South Carolina. He's not starting. There are examples, and he's probably not the best example to use, but there are some other examples. Would you spend top dollar from rev share on a quarterback or spread the rev share across positions that can help improve other areas first? We got about $16 million to spend, where other programs will probably spend about $25. I think there's probably more than $20 million invested in Clemson's roster this year. Obviously that's not all rev share, but you're not going to win without a quarterback. And even if you decide Vizzina is your starter, you got to pay him too. But I think that's a question you have to wait to the end of the season to answer.
Right.
It depends on what you think you have in Vizzina. Is he going to actually be the guy next year? If you still have questions, then, man, you got to spend the money and go get one. Hey, we're to the point now where you don't even really have to recruit high school quarterbacks anymore if you don't want to. Just go get you one every year.
Right.
It's going to cost you $2.53 million. Go get you one. Go get you a junior or a guy going into a senior year every year.
Right.
You don't have to worry about recruiting anymore. But I think that's a question better asked toward the end of the year, because I don't know that there's at this point in time, I don't know there's a wrong one, because obviously you want to spend some money and address some other. I think defensive end is going to be an area of need. Like I said earlier, I think you're going to need offensive lineman or two, safety. You might need to add a corner. I mean, there's several spots that might need addressing. So it's just going to depend on how it plays out. What happened to the run game this Saturday? First run of the game went for about 12. Then it was all downhill from there. Golly, man, you must have been listening to Dabo earlier, because that is basically what he said. The first run went for about 12, and then we never really ran it anymore. I wish I knew the answer to that one, man. Riley's just abandoned the run too often for me.
Yeah. I kind of scratched my head. What I will say is he ran the quarterback, and I don't think we needed to do that. I think that was the wrong thing to do. That's not Vizzina's game. But I'm agree with you on that one, JP. I think he's kind of abandoned it too early in a lot of games, even when we've had success. But I think they wanted to see more of what Vizzina could do. And I think because he was having the success and we weren't playing great up front, I think they were just kind of like, all right, obviously we're going to have to win it by throwing it, because we can't get no push up front at all. But again, I'm not trying to use that for an excuse for the past 6 games prior to that. Just in that game, you could kind of see it, like we were getting whipped. And then when we did have them, we make the wrong cut instead of keeping it front side on a 3rd and 1. So, it's almost like one thing, bad things happen, and then it just kind of domino effects.
Snowballs. Do I have any thing on Smith getting another year. I actually asked him this Saturday. He said it was in the works, and that if he got another year, he could tell you right now he'd be back at Clemson next year.
Let me tell y'all something. I want everybody to hear me. I'm going to write the NCAA to get that kid another year. Because and JP can tell you, I've been saying this since week one. He needs to play. And although Wesco is obviously out, I think this is the perfect storm for this kid to now play more. I think there's a chance where we might need to move more to the other side or him. And I think you find out what you really got to have. I mean, which we've seen every time the kid gets the ball, he's in the game. Positive play, big play. This kid needs to play. And if we want to go 4 wide, we got enough to go 4 wide. Tyler Brown sitting there. So, I just want to see this kid play because he's special.
He's definitely got to play more now that Wesco's hurt. And you just nailed it. You got to move TJ to Wesco's spot because a lot of people think those 2 outside wide receiver spots are interchangeable. They're not.
Right.
Not in this offense, anyways. They might have used to be when in the old offense, but they're not in Garrett's offense. That's why Turner's, Wesco's backup and TJ, his backup is Tristan Smith. But now that Wesco's out, if you can move more to the other spot, man, and create some more opportunities for Smith, I think that's a positive all the way around.
Dude, if he gets another year, even though we're going to be retooling some things next year, I'm just excited for the kid because the kid has done nothing but display big play capability game after game. And what would you say, JP, in a minimum of maybe 12, 15 reps a game?
At least, especially now.
And you couldn't tell me on 4th and 22 where the ball was going. I was like, we better throw this fade to this 6'5" kids.
I see Green and Adams as the defensive tackle starters. Who are the defensive end starters? Well, Lawson will be on one side, I'm sure, because I would fully expect him to be back next year. And, barring help bolting to the NFL, he's on the other side. He'll be draft eligible, so that'll be his decision. Mm-hmm. But even if you got both those guys back, you still behind them, you've got Darian Mayo, Ari Wofford, who's redshirting this year. You got J.R. Hardrick coming in, who's more of a developmental guy. He's definitely not a plug-and-play guy, and I'm forgetting somebody, and I know it. So, you don't have a bunch of depth there, man. Whether help comes back or not, I think you got to go get a guy.
Right. You definitely have to. You got to have a good two-guy rotation because injury and, like you said, if a guy doesn't come back, we were good when we had depth and we had experienced depth.
CV could be as effective a runner as Taj was, just needs more experience to read the defense and adjust to game speed. Yeah, that's kind of how – I don't know that he'll be exactly the bulldozer that Taj was because, man, if you had a 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 1, he could just take it right up the gut and usually pick it up.
Taj was about 225, and he was built like a running back.
Yeah, I see. That's kind of, but it's a fair comparison. I think when you just talking about running styles, I would say he's more of a bruiser because he's a big boy. He's 6'4". He probably weighs 225, something like that. He's not going to be the guy you want to get on the outside to the edge, trying to beat defensive ends to the edge there. But yeah, I think he can definitely be effective as a runner. If it's done right and if he gets the obviously the blocking in front of him.
Right.
Vizzina is the QB of the future. Let's just see what happens next season. The rest of this season, he's a good passer, looks at all the receivers. He deserves some respect and praise. I don't think we've been disrespecting him.
No.
I don't know that he's I don't know that it's dead set he's the guy next year either just yet. I don't know that you want to go into the offseason with the mindset of
throwing all the chips on him.
Let's just see what happens next year. I think you got to, at the very least, create some competition there.
Yeah, you're going to have to. It's just, like kind of like this year, you got a guy coming back who's supposed to be this, that, and the third, and then he doesn't play up to the potential. Now you're sitting there saying the same thing we're saying this year. Who's the backup? Who's next? So you gotta create some competitive competition.
Does Clemson have a salary cap on the portal? There is a cap on the revenue share money that you can spend. Every school got $20.5 million this year. They can divide it up however they want to. They can spend all of it on football or part of it on football and some of it on basketball and some of it on baseball. At Clemson, I like 87, 88% of it goes to football. 11, 12% goes to basketball, and then the remaining goes to the rest of the sports. But it's not a cap on the portal. But that rev share money's capped, absolutely.
Right.
That does not include NIL, third-party NIL deals. That's just the rev share money.
Yeah, we need to get the state port down here. We need to get Mercedes, all these big donors to start dumping some money in.
Here's another thing, that in this new era, he says that the players don't want to be here. Is it really worth it to pay an arm and a leg to keep them around? That probably leads to apathy, which I think is what we're seeing. Just let them go in portal. I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean specifically about players not wanting to be here. I'm assuming you're talking about guys that are checked out already. I don't know that I've seen a ton of checked outness yet. But that's if you're talking about trimming some fat from the roster in the offseason, that's a different discussion, and that's kind of where the sport's headed. Dabo's kind of been reluctant to go there just yet. And now that you got 105 scholarships, I don't think it's nearly as big a deal as it used to be. If you are getting the right guys, on the top end of the roster, that the guys that are going to be into too deep. I mean, you always have to have some quality depth, but once you start talking about the players from 95 to 105 on the roster, man. I could go either way. Only problem with Luke is we are over halfway through year 2. Talent may not be top 10 elite, but it doesn't match this performance either. Agree with JP. It's deep. The offensive line has been one of the biggest head scratchers for me because they've regressed from last year. I also don't think it's fair to get overly critical and not mention that Tristan Lee's been out most of the year. Walker Parks has been out for most of the year. Elijah Thurman's barely played. Colin Sadler, who just got hurt again Saturday's been beat up a lot since fall camp. I mean, this group's not been healthy. But at the same time, outside of Braden Jacobs, who I thought did some good things Saturday, and then there were some freshman moments mixed in, but what was really good this previous Saturday. Outside of him, the guys that are playing, they played a lot of football. So that has been one of the head scratchers for me. I do think that once you cycle some of these guys out and get some of these younger guys in, or maybe a portal guy or two if they decide to go that route, and you start seeing more of what he wants in offensive linemen, guys are on the field. I would expect the performance to start matching the potential. But yeah, that group's been disappointing this year. Absolutely.
Right. I agree with you 100%. I'm excited about Jacob's kid because that's one kid we can't lose. At 6'8", 340, you can't lose that. That's a left. That's your tackle you want on the blind side all day. That's the Michael Orr of the Michael Orr right there. You got to keep that guy.
CV also has the cojones to hang in the pocket. Yeah, it didn't seem scurrying backwards or escaping out to the right before the pressure got there. Yeah, he was stepping up into the pocket and making some throws.
Yeah, he wasn't like, for me, it was just, I was very pleased with seeing how even when he had guys flying around him, like he didn't tense or flinch. Like he was just, like you said, like just stepping into the throws, and you don't see that out of backups or young guys. You see them ready to escape the pocket, unsure, and he was just, man, with all that noise around him, he was just letting it go, and I was just pleased. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better performance from a guy, that hadn't had many snaps, live snaps, not cleanup time.
Lagway. I think you would, if you're going after a starter, I think there will be better options than Lagway, and probably some that don't cost as much that end up being better than Lagway. We're talking about a guy that's not really living up to all the hype yet. He's still a young guy. I get it, but he's got as many interceptions as touchdowns. He's averaging less than 7 yards an attempt, I think. I don't know. If you're going to go the route of getting a starting quarterback, I'm going to get an older guy that's far more established than Lagway.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really too fond on Lagway.
First time watcher says Mr. Ford caught passes from my favorite Clemson player of all time.
Yep.
Offensive philosophy needs to change. There is too much uncertainty within the play calling, and the players don't act like they are bought into what they are told to run. I have not been a big fan of the play calling. Now, I can't say what they're bought into and what they're not bought into, but I did not think the play calling did Vizzina a lot of favors, early over the first quarter and a half Saturday. I thought they started to open it a little bit, after that, man. But if you open it up from the jump, maybe you can get out on top and not play from behind the whole game.
Right. I agree. And I think the question mark for me was, like you just said, not opening up right away. And then I just think the QB design runs for him, that kid needs to sling the rock. He don't need to be trying to run it. If we're going to run it, hand it off to one of the running backs. I think what we saw is what we were waiting to see and what we want more of as far as letting him, sling the rock. I don't think he needs to be back there dropping, trying to run a QB lead or ISO or whatever. Like, his game is throwing the ball, and obviously that's what we saw Saturday, putting it on the money, putting it on where his guys can catch it. That's what we need.
Yes, I agree. I've watched Amari Adams for 2 years in high school, and that guy's got a world of potential, man. And he you talking about a big guy. That's another, we were talking about Braden Jacobs being big. Just a big dude too, man. Adams like 6'4", 6'5". He's probably 330, something like that right now. And ain't much fat on him.
Train wreck.
Okay, what statistics are we cherry picking? Unless you're talking about somebody else, I don't know. I hadn't even really cited any statistics.
Yeah.
I would hate for Florida State to beat Clemson for its first ACC win in 2 years. Yeah, that would suck, man. It's let me get. I figured up the days the other night when Florida State lost. So it has now been 395 days since FSU has won an ACC game. It's
You
now
said 395?
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's been 367 days since Clemson has beaten a Power 4 team at home.
Yeah.
It's hard times for the two former ACC powers. That's what I took.
I was about to say. That's
But
rough.
yeah, if you're going to get over – I mean, let's say for whatever reason you lose to Duke and the home drought continues, man. You cannot be the team that Florida State beats.
They beat.
And on your home field to kind of break that streak. That for all the problems Clemson's got, Florida State's got more.
Yes.
That is.
And you talk about a university that's living and dying by the portal right now. Like
they got a coach that's a dead man walking. That's a game you can't lose, man. Polo and Gordon Sellers keeping the class together. They've actually got a big group chat text thing, man. So they all kind of
converse over time.
Yep, I've had several tell me that,
and that's good because that's not common everywhere. That's not common.
Tate told me that he should be back really soon, or he was hoping to be back real soon. That's I don't know if that means next week or this coming Friday or next week. We just have to see. But he's not played since the first game. With Wesco out, what do you think the starting wide receiver group and what spot will they line up in? Yeah, we just kind of touched on this. We didn't say who we thought would be starting. I'll let you go first.
If it's
We're
going to
say
be
the same thing.
It's going to be 3 wide, 11 personnel. It should be Moore, Williams, Smith. If we're going to get in a 4 wide set, which we have, it's going to be those 3 and Tyler Brown.
Yeah, I think TJ Moore will move to the other spot, and Tristan Smith and Antonio is high. I mean, I guess you could always throw Antonio out there and leave TJ Moore there and start Tyler because we've seen Antonio play all 3 spots. So I guess you can move him outside and move Tyler Brown to the slot and keep TJ Moore where he is. But still, even if they do that, I'd like to see TJ Moore play both spots and get Tristan in the game more.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. This defense this year is and last year they didn't blitz a whole heck of a lot. Not like nobody blitzes the way Venables did when he was at Clemson, man, with all that talent he had. But
yeah, he had a back end that could play.
If you go watch Tom Allen's defense last year at Penn State for a few games, you'll see that he was much more aggressive. He's just not been as aggressive here. And if you, my bet would be because he doesn't have a lot of faith in the back end. They're just too inconsistent. I mean, look how they line up sometimes, man. Those corners to give the receivers so much cushion on a lot of those plays. It's like he doesn't have a lot of faith in, and his scheme is really reliant on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this season go from here to build for next year and try to end on a good note? Play Vizzina, add some spice to the offense, play more guys on defense, like speed, physicality on defense. So, what do you think? Where does the season go from here?
I think I said earlier, you just gotta obviously some of the goals that you had or all of the goals you had in place aren't on the table anymore. It's a very low percentage. So what you have to do now is start developing. Rather two comes back in, if he's full go, you let Vizzina develop more. You start playing these guys. You're gonna have to find a way. Obviously, you don't want to lose these games or lose all of them, but you want to develop and get W's. I just think the more reps for Vizzina is going to help. I'm not all saying bench Cade whatsoever. I'm just saying this kid needs to play, whether it's versus Duke or whomever. You definitely got to get him more reps. And then maybe it's time to start gut checking some of these guys who aren't making the plays or like you said, JP, in the right spots, or they just always seem to be out of the right spot and taking bad angles. Maybe the guy behind him, or maybe we need to go in a different style of defense and get a third linebacker in there majority of the times, or a nickel guy or something, because you're just seeing it too much. You're seeing it too much, and from what you saw on paper early on, and the energy Allen was bringing from the offseason until, you saw clips of practice and what they do and how they clean stuff up. You just thought we would see more. We would see more production and tackling, more physicality. And honestly, JP, I thought we started to see an edge 2 weeks ago when he was down on the sideline, but it's just inconsistent, like you say. So you just have to see more development. I think it's a time where, like I said, the goals are possibly all off the table, and we need to just start progressing and finding ways to get guys more reps and challenging some of these other guys.
First things first, like you said, all the goals are off the table. I do think you need to build some momentum towards next year. So you still got to you got to do what you can to try and win some of these final games, because you don't want to finish, 3-9 or 4-8 or whatever. You'd much rather, have, let's say, be above 500 from here on out.
Right.
That sends you. It's a little bit different of a feeling going into the offseason as opposed to losing 4 out of 5 to end the season. But first thing, after what you saw from Vizzina Saturday, you don't have to rush Cade back.
Right.
He's actually got a high ankle sprain. It's not one of those regular deals. So it's not something that I've seen so many people, kind of basically calling out his manhood because Jennings played the other day and he didn't, calling him a prima donna and soft. The injuries are not the same.
Right.
He's got a high ankle sprain, from my understanding, and those usually take a few weeks to get back from it. Anybody that saw him working out pregame could see he was not going to play. He could not plan on his right foot. His throws had no zip on them. He was not moving around well at all. And I am sure that was after, they numbed him up a little bit. But as far as, what you do to try to to me, that's what you do. You try to end on a good note somehow. Even once you get Cade back, I think you still need, like Brandon said, get Vizzina still a little bit of work and get him as ready as you can for next season. As far as playing more guys on defense, I don't know who it'd be. Maybe a couple of those defensive linemen.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, JP.
No, go ahead.
The one thing I wanted, I'm going to piggyback on two things. The high ankle sprain is very serious. I've had one before my senior year. I actually ran up on the back of Rob McDowell. I think it was against Georgia Tech or VTech, one of the two. And I just kind of, they fell on it. And, man, you talk about in a boot, couldn't walk. I mean, luckily we had a bye week the next week, and then it was with those Tortoise shots for 4 or 5 weeks straight. I'm talking about. I mean, and they worked, but I could still like feel it. But I think I had a bye week in between where he didn't, and they suck. But the other thing is, where I was getting at on the defensive side was like I kind of like seeing McLeod out there, man. Like I'm not saying he's the most talented guy or whatever, but he's made plays when he has been in the game on defense, and I kind of want to see like him value a little more reps, get him some more reps in there. Maybe you got to push the other guys. So, but like you said, you just got to kind of build from here on out and build some positiveness going into next season.
Yeah, I think you got to do what you have to do to win games, but I think you can. There's a maybe a fine line you can walk there with getting some of the younger guys who haven't played. You don't want to burn anybody's red shirt or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe getting some of those young offensive linemen a few reps here and there. Guys like Kobe McLeod. I don't know if Logan Anderson's all the way back. He probably needs a little bit more bulk. He's a freshman linebacker who's coming off a torn ACL last year as a senior in high school. But, I don't know. I think they pretty much played all those safeties and most of the corners.
Right.
But there's definitely some younger guys like Schuler and Champ Thompson. We've seen a good bit of Adams already, but those are two guys that could probably benefit from a few more snaps. But I still think you got to do what you think you have to do to try to win games.
Right.
Because somebody mentioned apathy earlier, man. It's already set in. As a sport writer who looks at, clicks and views and impressions and those kind of things, I can look at those kind of numbers and there's some apathy already setting in. People are just, fans talk about players checking out. There's a lot of fans that have checked out too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to sour people any more than they're already soured. I don't even know if that's possible at this point, but you don't want to take that chance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We will need a QB just to keep our receivers around. I think that's a distinct possibility. I don't, and I also think that if they decide to go that direction, those receivers will know it in time, before they decide to bolt. But again, like I was saying earlier, I think you got another few weeks before you have to really make that decision.
Right.
If we're sitting here right here today, I'm 100% on board with you. They need a portal quarterback. But I reserve the right to change my mind, based on what happens the rest of the way. What say you?
Yeah, I agree. Like we spoke on earlier, the competition, you need it there. And you do need someone to keep these guys happy. And I mean, one game so far, I would say, and what we saw in Vizzina, I know TJ Moore is happy. You can definitely say he's probably happy. I think Tristan Smith is happy.
Tristan Smith seems overjoyed every time we talk.
Dude. Like I think just the opportunity of getting from where he was to the P4 level and now actually having a chance to play and perform. I think that's big for him. And I think that's why he mentioned to you, if he's granted another year, he's coming back here. So, again, and that just speaks a lot about the program in itself outside of the results we're having.
The offensive coaches aren't even a cohesive unit. CJ Spiller should be able to walk up to Riley and say, hey, why aren't you using my guys? Actually, you got that wrong. Spiller needs to look in the mirror and ask himself why he's not using those guys, because he's in control of those rotations.
Right.
The position coaches, have far more say in that than the offensive coordinator is not worried about the rotations all that much. if Riley is released, that might have a more significant impact on some wide receivers. I don't know. It might have. I better not say that. I think if you were to part ways with Riley, or he were to leave on his own, or for whatever reason, I think that might have an impact on Tate Reynolds. But it just it's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
There was one. Here we go. What was the reason to bring in Chris Denson for that 1 yard run? He had a set of plays for a package, but only gets one opportunity. Yeah, that was something that I don't. If you heard Dabo's teleconference earlier tonight, he was not happy about that either. They had a package in there. I thought it was pretty clear about Dabo's tone that he was a little disappointed that they didn't get him in a few more times than they did. At the same time, when you run him out there, everybody in the stadium knows he's running.
Yeah, I was a little confused on that one too. Kind of thought he would have got more.
Yeah, if you got to make the package, just give him the opportunity, or to make the package, give him the opportunities.
Maybe 5 plays, maybe 10 at the most. I don't know, but again, like you said, with abandoning the run, I think Vizzina just had the hot hand, and that's where Riley kind of wanted to stay.
Yeah, I was actually led to believe going in that we were going to see both Vizzina and Pierman. And, you get deep into that first quarter, and Vizzina's kind of, in a rut, doesn't look very comfortable, man. Just hasn't looked in a groove at all. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if we're going to see Pierman, it's about time. We need to go ahead and get him in here. All of a sudden, bam, 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 Vizzina finds his rhythm, and there's no reason to get him in. But I wonder how that would have played out had Vizzina, not started playing as well as he did. Is it common for coordinators to hire their own coaches, or does the head coach normally hire the assistants and at least mandate that certain people get jobs on staff? I've been asking for 3 weeks for somebody to give me an example of a head coach hiring a new coordinator and allowing that coordinator to bring in his own staff. Nobody's provided me with one yet. It doesn't happen.
Right.
Generally they'll get to bring in a guy or maybe 2 with them, like Tom Allen. He brought his son in with him. We see that kind of stuff happen, but they don't get to hire the entire staff.
No,
I can't remember that ever happening.
No,
See, we got asked this earlier. If you got a couple million to spend, would you rather have a QB or lean on CV than get a safety center and guard? See, I think Clemson might need a quarterback and a couple of offensive linemen, and I think they've got the money to be able to do it. I mean, it's not like they only have a couple million to spend. So, I mean, if they need to go get a quarterback and they decide that's the route they're going to take, then that means they got to decide that they're going to spend the money it takes to go get one. Now, I wouldn't expect them to go get, the biggest names out there that's going to cost, 3.5, 4, 5 million. But I would expect them to go find maybe one in a tier below that and spend decent money on him. I don't think it's an either or thing. Funniest thing, Shane Beamer jumps to Virginia Tech, Sellers jumps to Clemson. Hey,
listen.
I am a big Lenore Sellers fan, so I would welcome that with open arms. Man, that South Carolina screwed the pooch with that guy.
Listen, it is so funny that this just came up because they were talking about that at PT today, man. They were saying, what if Beamer takes Virginia Tech job and Sellers comes to Clemson? I said, well, somebody better be going and get Gus Malzahn or somebody, because we got to go. You know what I mean? I mean, just what he can do and what Mike Shula's trying to do that's not working. I mean, man.
That guy is not a pro-style pocket passer. Why you hire a pro-style guy to mentor him and run that offense with him? It's just mind-blowing.
I mean, based on what he did last year, I would be trying to elevate that. You know, the kid is a playmaker. He can extend plays with his feet, with his arm. He's as solid as they come. He breaks tackles, evades the – I mean, and to try to make him a pocket passer is just insane.
I didn't get to watch a lot of that game Saturday because we were already at the stadium, but I had it on my laptop, so I was kind of watching at it. And there was – I can't even remember what point in the game it was, but South Carolina had the ball on like the 1 or the 2 yard line. It was either 2 or 3 times in a row, man. They handed it to the running back. He just ran it straight up the middle, right into the teeth of that Venables defense. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 times in a row. Never let Sellers run it. I mean, that guy can kill you with his legs, and
JP, there was a series.
Their offensive line's terrible too. So,
JP, there was a series. I watched it. I watched like up until the Clemson game come on. There was a series where South Carolina was inside or backed up. In there 2010 maybe 3 times in a row. 3. This guy breaks a tackle or 2, evades sacks, turns and runs, picks up first down. And I'm talking about, it wasn't the safeties and corners coming up. Linebacker, defensive lineman. I mean, grabbing them all on the arm, and he's just like throwing them down, switch the ball in the arm. And I'm just like, and yet we're seeing Mike Shula trying to keep this kid in the pocket.
Yeah, they broke out into some fire Shula chants at Willie B the other night.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes, or I mean, they're saying they're gonna give Beamer some more time. If Beamer doesn't take that job, I mean, I don't. I mean, obviously I don't know, but with him recently getting the extension, but you know, like I know, man, anything can change.
Okay, the cherry picking you was talking about the time the D-line get to the QB. Yeah, even I said I was surprised when I saw that. But, I mean, if it's true, then I mean, it's hard to argue numbers. Look, man, I don't think anybody's sitting here arguing that the defensive line has played up to its potential. Ain't nobody here saying that, I promise. Yeah, what Tony Elliott's done at Virginia, man, nobody deserves it more than that guy. So glad they showed a little patience with him. And
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's doing it with he's got a good, he went and got him a good quarterback, man. And that's not, you look at that roster and compare it with Clemson's. One's loaded with 4 stars and some 5 stars. One's loaded with 3 stars with some 4 stars sprinkled in, man. Kind of like the roster up there at Indiana. Bunch of 3 stars, man. And look what they're doing.
Yeah, because they kind of had him on the hot seat coming into the year.
If they didn't have that shooting up there when he first got hired, they probably would have fired him already. That bought him a little bit more time than he probably otherwise would have had.
Yeah. I'm glad to see they gave him more time because they are playing some ball right now.
Somebody's trying to call me. All right. We're hitting the 2-hour mark here. Make sure. Let's see here. I think I might have got an anonymous question here. Let me check before we jump off. Somebody did just point out to me, Gideon Davidson's had 15 carries all season. CV had 15 in the game the other day.
15 carries.
That is
wild.
Yeah, I don't know how the soccer team's doing. I'll be honest with you, man. I'd rather watch paint dry than watch soccer. It's just does not entertain me. All right, let's scroll through the. Did DJU get a hefty NIL deal before he's got his chance to start? He signed a national deal with Dr. Pepper before he started.
Right, yep.
First game. Before he started game number 1 as a full-time starter. You know, that was given to him after he had those 2 really good showings against Boston College and Notre Dame. When Trevor was out with COVID and him being a 5-star and the number 1 QB in the country and all the hype surrounding him. So, yeah, he did get the big Dr. Pepper NIL deal as a national deal when he was a sophomore, I guess. Yeah, sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
Last one. I still think Beamer will be a serious candidate at Virginia Tech, especially as South Carolina continues to lose. This story fascinates me because, you know, when Virginia Tech first fired their coach, you know, and Beamer's name was one of the first ones to get tossed around, and I'm thinking there's no way he's leaving that South Carolina job in the SEC to go to Virginia Tech and coach in Daddy's footsteps. You know, but the more time that passes by, and I still don't think it'll happen. But it's fun to think about, and I don't think it's, you know, then I would have said no chance. I don't know that I would say no chance now. I would say 1 or 2%. The door might be cracked open a tad. I mean, it would definitely be a soft landing spot for him if he wanted, you know, if he decided, hey, you know, I think I'm gonna get fired in a year or 2 here. If I stay, might as well move on now. I mean, I could see that maybe happening. I lean towards thinking he'll stay because he's always kind of been adamant about not wanting to coach at the same school as Daddy coached at. But yeah, that's going to be a fun storyline to watch as we get, you know, closer to the end of the season. What do you think? You think he might?
Man, listen. If guys continue to get fired left and right like they are now, it ain't a bad spot to land in. But I don't know, man. I think he mentally is bought into South Carolina. I think he wants to stay there. I don't think he wants to just get out of Dodge and say, man, I'm just going to leave now before it happens. I think he's really going to try to grab this program because, I mean, if you look at how they finished last year, you know, 6-0 run the last 6 games or whatever, you know, with beating Clemson, Florida, and I think it was Tennessee or whatever. And these guys were coming off of that hype train. You and JP, you talked about it earlier about how you could finish well and go into the season, and how the drive is different. You know, finishing 6-0, 5-0, whatever, versus 500 record. I think he really wants to grab that program and build it back to where Spurrier had it before he left. But I don't think he's in a rush or trying to jet out to get to where his dad was. Now, like you said, I think that door is cracked a little bit to where if that's an opportunity and he does get fired, he may go there. But I just don't see him right now saying, man, I'm probably going to end up coaching in daddy footsteps.
Yeah, I don't either. I lean heavily towards thinking he'll stay at South Carolina. And he's, like you said, I think he's kind of dedicated to try and see it through and get them turned around. And I'll also add this, that I thought they were a little overhyped coming into the season anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't think that offensive line was going to be very good. I didn't know about the running game outside of Sellers. Turns out he's not even a part of it hardly. And then the receivers, you got the Harbor kid who's been a track star for 2 years and finally just went football full time here in the past or before this season. And then you got Mazio Bennett behind him who would be a sophomore. And then after that, it's a lot of inexperience. You got two guys, two of those receivers that should still be seniors in high school because they reclassed from 26 to 25 to be on the team this year. So, it's just a lot of inexperience there. And then that defense that was so good last year. They lost 30-something seniors off that team from last year, and most of that defense is gone. They had to replace all of it. Stewart and the defensive tackles back, I forget his name, but those are two pretty good guys, but pretty good players, should I say. But there was just a lot to replace, and I thought that if they were going to be good again, it might be 26 instead of 25, man. But I just don't know. He's got a. I just don't see how the Shula marriage ends up anything but a disaster. And the quicker he cuts ties there, the better. I just don't see how you bring him back for another year. I do like the move he made a couple of weeks ago with moving on from his O-line coach and giving that to Sean Elliott, who has proved in the past he's a pretty good offensive line coach. But yeah, I just think I think he is dedicated to South Carolina. I know a lot of people don't a lot of Clemson fans don't like Beamer, and I get it. I understand it. But I do believe he's loyal and bought in. I don't see him being a guy that would tuck and tail from a challenge, and leaving South Carolina, Virginia Tech would basically be doing that.
Mm-hmm. JP, I got a question for you. What and I just kind of want to ask you, and this is outside of Clemson, but what are you hearing or what are you thinking about this whole Florida ordeal and Lane Kiffin and
that's gonna be fascinating, man.
I just had to ask
because their AD has been so dead set against hiring Lane Kiffin. To me, the question is, would Lane want to take the job? They'd offer him more money. He just got a raise at Ole Miss. They kind of giving him a lot of the resources he needs there at Ole Miss. I think that might be the most fascinating part. Would he leave Ole Miss for Florida? Because, in this day and age, is Florida that much better of a job than Ole Miss? Right. I know a lot of people say, yeah, but that's based on past history. They haven't done a whole lot in this new era or, even going back before that. But, yeah, that's going to be fascinating to watch him. And where does James Franklin end up? I thought his comments on game day the other day, I loved them, man. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but, we always had a goal of winning the national title at Penn State, and that's still the goal. We're going to do it somewhere. So, that tells you what his plans are right there. He's going to be right back in coaching.
Right. And the last one I have for you is, what is your take? Like, I think the guy is as arrogant as he gets. Brian Kelly, I don't think he got long. I really don't think. I think if they drop two more, for sure, he's out of there.
He might be in trouble too. He might have to adapt his northern accent back, after this year and move back up north, after he adapted that Cajun accent when he got hired there at LSU. But he went on record, man. It's the most talented team I've had since I've been here, talking we're going to win big. And, yeah, look, losing to Vanderbilt now is not like losing to Vanderbilt five years ago. That's a pretty good team. But, man, that's a team. That LSU team was supposed to be a playoff contender.
Right.
And their playoff hopes are on life support right now.
Right.
So, yeah, he could be coaching for his job down the stretch.
And when we got out of practice today, I told the coach, I said, if Clemson had beat LSU with these other 2 losses, he probably is one of those ones we see on that list right now, fired.
Oh, yeah. If they would have lost to Clemson and then dropped the same games they've already dropped now, oh, yeah, he'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, one more outside of my daughter apologizing for calling me in the midst of this. And I meant to get this earlier, and I scrolled over it by accident. I wasn't ignoring it on purpose. I did see you brought it up a couple of times before. Wesco as the punt returner. Antonio's supposed to be the punt returner, but after he, tweaked his hand, hurt his hamstring, and missed a couple games, they went with Wesco, and he stayed there ever since. And I haven't had that big an issue with it. I mean, you got to put somebody back there that's capable of not only catching the ball in that kind of traffic with guys bearing down on you. Not everybody can do it. I saw you mention somebody mentioned Cole Turner doing it earlier. It might have been you, or it might have been Mayor and Tiger here. Can't remember who did, but I've never, of all the practices I've been to, I've never seen Cole Turner working out as a punt returner or a kick returner. It's always been Antonio and Wesco and golly, who was the other one? I have to go back and look at my notes, but you got to throw somebody back there, and it's typically a receiver. So I mean, it sucks that he got hurt doing it. You probably coach him not to pick those balls up like that on the hop. He did it earlier, and this was the second time he did it in the game. But, that could have just as easily happened to him playing receiver. I mean, I guess I don't see it as all that egregious or anything.
Yeah. Well, one guy I would like to see back there, and I don't know how good he is on punt return, and I could just be talking, but I kind of want to see Tyler Brown back there. He's a little shifty guy. I mean,
yeah, it's him. He's the other one that I've seen him use in practice. Him.
I mean, he's shown speed. He's shown shiftiness. I wouldn't mind seeing him back there.
Yeah, I think he returned some punts for him last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind him being back there either, but you got to put somebody out there, I guess.
Right.
All right, Brandon, we very much appreciate you jumping on tonight, man. You've been on here about 90 minutes now. That's a lot. It's a lot of time to give up on a Monday night, and I very much coming on here and sharing some of your insights.
Yes, sir.
And before we jump out of here, thank my sponsors over at A-Glass. 2 locations in the PD, one in Florence, one in Sumter. Give them a call. Ask for my guy Ryan, Stan, my girl Chandra there in the office can help you out. They've been in business a long time. Take care of all your auto glass needs, replacement, repair. Get yourself a free quote today, myaglass.com. Right back here next Monday, 7 p.m. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. Hit that like button. And last but certainly not least, do not forget to check us out on the website, ClemsonInsider.com. For Brandon, I'm Jason. See you next time.